Well, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us in another webinar session, painting webinar session. We're super excited and we are very thankful that you joined, some of you again. And yeah, it's just going to be hopefully as fascinating and interesting as every other webinar. I forgot to upload the slides on my phone, and during the presentation, I wasn't able to show images, but I've noticed that some of you have already been inspired to take self-portraits, um, inspired by some of the images. So really quickly, I'm gonna make a super mini introduction. I know that some people are still kind of like setting up, and maybe some of you are already starting sketching, which I hope you are. If you're watching us from the future, thanks for joining. Also, this is our sixth webinar. We've done five. We painted toasters, portrait of Kamala Harris, our own pillows, a picture of clouds, and the clown portrait last week. So five amazing, incredible. The work looks sensational. And as we mentioned in the email that we sent yesterday, I believe, we're trying to make this year or come up with a painting challenge that consists of finishing as many paintings as possible, as many paintings that we start. We got inspired by um, people proposing reading challenges. We have an account and a profile in Goodreads, which is a website that is all about books. And we noticed that at the beginning of the year, people were saying, I'm going to read 12 books. I'm going to read 5 books. I'm going to read 52 books. And at the end of the year, there's always this notifications that people have been able to fulfill their challenges. And we thought, why don't we co-opt that idea and do the same with paintings? Let's see if by the end of 2021, how many paintings can we say are concluded? We know that the work never finishes, but I think it's interesting to kind of like check on each other and find out where we are in that challenge. It's not like something that should feel like a struggle, but at the same time, it's nice to have a goal post or challenge ourselves to accomplish, finish, conclude as many paintings as possible, as many paintings as we start. Because otherwise, it's already the mid-February, and in the blink of an eye, it's going to be March. And I was just telling Kian something about March, and the word March sounds scary already. So we're going to keep checking on you. And if you can, please paint at home, find your time, get everyone out of the room, turn off your phones and paint. And if you cannot, we're offering the studio time sessions, which are becoming more and more fundamental and important. Jen, how are you?
Hi, I'm awesome. I'm super excited for Self Portrait Day, and so many people are here. It's just so exciting. So, thank you guys so much. Yay.
Thanks, Jen. And we'll see what we're gonna, ask you to do. I'm sorry, that sounds awful, but what kind of like research? Let me just really quickly, just in case, and please start sketching if you are all ready. But these are the paintings. Marlene Dumas, we recommend you you read what he wrote about portraits not being of specific people, but of moods or states of mind. And we love her work, and she is an amazing speaker, by the way. She's hilarious and super smart. And if you can find interviews of her, just yeah, get familiar with her work. She's very well known in the little kind of like art world of people who know contemporary female artists. But yeah, she's a big and then this is an artist from Australia. We love this 3/4 but facing back. Compositionally, the curtain takes a little bit of a focal point. Remember, 3 or less focal points. And even with a portrait, we can engage or entertain that idea of perhaps bringing something outside of the facial features. There is a very interesting project. It's a collaboration by Young and Battaglia and a digital artist named Corinne Young. And what they did, I think this is the National Portrait Gallery in London. They just selected, I believe, 8 paintings, a series of 8 paintings. And maybe, Jen, if you want, if you have extra time, you can find other examples. But they manipulated the series. They stripped the colors, they saturated completely the painting. They kept the colors only on the face, and then they added this black silk blindfold. It's all digitally worked, but we're not showing this because of the realism or the complexity of the painting, just the idea of making a creative decision and stripping the color from everything else except on the face. That could be also an idea to entertain. A famous fashion illustrator in the 40s, and you'll recognize if you Google his name, Jen, you'll recognize some of the illustrations that have been in covers of magazines and stuff. But yeah, that's more of a female gaze approach. But nevertheless, line work of 3 focal points, blindfold, lips, and line work. William Kentridge is a really amazing artist from South Africa. He works with charcoal and drawing, and we thought this was interesting. And also from South Africa, Norman Catherine. We didn't know about this artist, but a full profile and the idea of bringing an element in the background that feels interesting in the conceptual idea of this, the privacy, not the privacy, the stripping of perhaps rights. John Baldessari, yeah, the knife thrower. I never thought that that was also an option in regards to thinking of how people use blindfolds for different things. So it's a assemblage or combination of 2 photographic images, and then he painted on both of them. He painted gray on the image of the left, and he painted white, blocking out the image on the right. So he used to be a painter before he started being more conceptual, and then he had a major crisis, and then he burned all his paintings. And anyhow, I don't know, we can just show you. And then this is a Russian artist, and we brought this just because of the composition. So forget about likeness and realism and all that stuff. But by the way, I think it's his name, I'm not sure, but he does portraits of children with things covering their faces. He has a very beautiful portrait with a mason jar full with water, and the eyes are distorted behind the mason jar on the child. It's just really intriguing, and hands and objects to cover their faces. All right, let's get to it, and we're gonna sketch. All right, let me just position. I just took a picture this morning, and I just tried my best. I did it on my own. I saw some of your images. I'm doing format first. I'm doing 12 by 16 rectangular portrait orientation, different from last week. And I was able to print this out, but notice that what I'm doing, because I wanted to move the portrait so it's a little bit more upright and vertical. And then I just chopped a little bit, or it's really close to the hair. So I'm already studying how to transfer from a photographic format to my painting format. Again, format, it's about the size, the shape, and the orientation of your painting. And that's the first challenge that we encounter, how to adjust or reformat what we have on one image source, one reference, into the format that we're gonna end up using for the painting. So focal points, 3 or less, very important. If you add elements, if you make the image, I was thinking of some of the images that got uploaded, and I noticed that you guys, it seems that you took the photos yourself. So there's this idea that the figure, it's not balanced or properly centered. And I'm saying this because I like it. There's something really interesting conceptually about this, showing maybe a little bit of an off frame, or not perfectly studied bust, that it's perhaps cropped, or it has a lot of negative space. So that could mean a couple of focal points already. The figure and the background, if it's unpredictably unbalanced. So, but yeah, if you want to add elements and make the painting a little bit more complex in its narrative, be careful, be careful. More than 3 will be a distraction, and the things will start demanding attention from the viewer. And in the end, because of that overwhelming sensation of having to look at a lot, everything becomes weaker and less poignant. So obviously that's only a guideline and a suggestion, but I always think it's very important to go by the rules first in order to be able to break them and later. So I just lower the photograph because in my case, I did want to bring a little bit of movement, another of the principles of composition that we will talk about every single time. Movement is how much space you leave for the viewer's eye to wander around what you have in your painting. If you don't leave enough movement for the eye to roam around, you're going to create interruptions, obstacles, pauses in that flow of the eye movement that are going to cause the viewer to stop and maybe look at something that you don't want them to look at. You want to direct their attention somewhere else. But because of that interruption, it's just going to take away from what you spend so much time working on. The viewer doesn't know these things. They just look at a painting like a second, maybe, if we're lucky. But yeah, we should do the best we can with that second that we have when someone looks at our work, and make sure that nothing feels like we're squeezing or pausing or wasting precious milliseconds in that opportunity, that window. So that's why I always say, just make sure that nothing feels too sticky closer to the edges, because the edges become magnets. They pull towards them. So even if you leave like a half, a quarter, or an eighth of an inch, it will look like, you know, it's cropped by the edge. So what else I'm doing right now? So I'm setting up the parameters, the height, maybe just the width of the portrait as well. So I'm just going to try to set up the parameters. I don't start with the potato shape yet, but maybe I'll bring a ruler, a yardstick. If you have a yardstick, those are great to have right next to your easel, your workstation. Keep them. I should have one. I'm not going to go now and get it, but I should have one, because if you have an iPad, or if you have a copy, or if you have something that's similar to the format that you're using, it's a good way to find alignments. Horizontal alignments work really great, so you don't have to start worrying about proportions or anything like that. All right, so let's just go get started with the potato shape. What's a potato shape? It's a basic silhouette, a simple basic silhouette that allows me to find out how big and where things are on the painting. That's all it is. And it's very important, because if I just move forward too fast, and we have a tendency of moving forward too fast, I get trapped. I don't want to change what I've got, and then I'm 5 minutes away from ending the session, and I want to change everything about it. So slow down. And we're here to tell you to slow down. Painting is a slow art. So yeah, so now that I have the potato shape, I'm kind of like checking, testing, checking. I'm still not going inside the lines yet. I'm checking and testing, and I think that's okay. Well, we'll see. I think that's okay. So I'm just gonna, yeah. And in that sense, you can also use a yardstick or the um, the handle of any paintbrush to use it as a ruler. And yeah, so maybe this could be the total width. I think I'm just gonna thin it out a little bit. So I'm just gonna thin it out from here. And very important in regards to a 3/4 perspective, if you have to move things around. Or like traditionally, I was gonna say orthodoxly, but I just like, yeah, let's just keep it chill word wise. So if the face is facing one direction, it's better compositionally to leave more room between the face and the edge than the back of the head. So again, if you have the face, and that's why potato shapes are good, because we can always test that. Because I shaved a little bit from the actual profile or the 3/4 profile, just because perhaps it's better to have more room on that space than more room on the other side. Why? Just because since uh, we are going to concentrate our attention, or we're going to develop the painting so this area becomes a focal point, you want to leave a little bit more of that movement, that compositional element that is on the side of the visual of the facial features. Okay, you got me. So less on the back of the head and more between the profile and the other edge. So I also learned that by just reading about compositional elements, which I'm obsessed about. So I'm just gonna do that. And then do I need to do this? I don't know, I'm just gonna do it, but it feels a little bit too much, but no, I think that's good. All right, the 3 most important structural, and by the way, I should throw a disclaimer at you and say that as many other portraits that we've done, this session, this 2 hours, may just put us in a place where we do a sketch and a wash. That's how much the sketching and the measuring and the comparing and the testing takes when we're working with portraits. So not trying to lower expectations, but I really enjoy going through the stages of the portrait journey. So I don't hesitate being thoughtful and considerate with those measurements and comparisons and relationships. So with the clown, we approached it in a way that felt more hodgepodge kind of thing, just because of conceptually, we try to convey the idea of building something from scraps as something that clowns are experts in doing. So we paid less attention to proportions and stuff. But with this, I feel like it's more of a traditional, I'm approaching it more like a traditional self-portrait, a portrait, I'm sorry. All right, so yeah, the 3 most important lines: hairline, chin line, and neckline if the person's wearing clothes. So it's not the eyes yet, or the mouth, or the nose. So hairline, yeah, so let's just kind of like on my case, it's the separation between, so here we go. I'm working fast. Don't worry about where the lines are at this stage, because things are going to move and change constantly. So this is the hairline. The chin line, let me just see if I can go ahead. This was the chin. And chin and jaw, if you have 3/4 perspective. And the neckline, so yeah. Just eyeball estimate based on any parameters that you may have. Yeah, so this would be my next step. Here's a fact and here's a cold, hard truth. It doesn't matter if you, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you get the right measurements. It doesn't matter if you use a carbon paper or transfer paper and you actually trace the portrait. You will always find something that you want to tweak and manipulate. It doesn't matter if you work with grids or if you have the exact same size, if you trim the paper, if you put the paper on top of your photograph and you actually trim it and then you carbon copy it. There's always this feeling that we want to tweak something. Something's not going to be exactly in the right spot. And that's beautiful. And it makes the painting unique, and it's a good testimony or witness to the way we observe and translate, and not just simple replication. So it doesn't matter. My point is that it doesn't matter how well your scaffolding is, how perfect your distances are. It will always require our tweaking, always. And if it doesn't, it's not an artistic translation. It's just simple. What is it? I'll find the word. That's work. All right, so I have this. I don't have to work on the keystone. Oh, well, we're gonna go fast here. All right, let's just do the upper. Okay, that's good. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. So eyes are done, no bone structure. So more time to work on actually the nose and the mouth, the most difficult part of a portrait. So that's good, it's gonna give us time. What I'm doing right now, setting the parameters of the scaffolding. I just set it up so it's wide enough. I know that some of you are showing noses, some of you are not, and that's perfect and wonderful. All right, so that's going to be a huge help to do more things during the session. So, all right, so here we go. Testing and doing alignments, it always helps. Knowing that this will change. All right, so I have it. Were you able to find any other of the paintings from that series, Jen, by any chance?
Find paintings from that series. I missed something.
Oh, no, never mind. Yeah, I was just like looking at the series of the black and white classic painting.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's okay. No. It's totally fine. All right, so maybe if we don't have a keystone, we can just work by finding or bringing the vertical axis on the face. The vertical axis is the core line, the vertical core line that runs through the middle of the face, or that edge that would represent the split between both mirror image sides of the face. So let's do that. I'm just gonna bring that, and knowing, let me just check. I'm just doing it right here. So this is perhaps a very crucial part of our portrait, because we see it, right? We see this and we see where it is. And our brain says, you're not gonna make it there. You're gonna put it in the dead center of what you have. I'm not gonna let your hand do what your eyes are seeing. So I'm just gonna play that tape and make sure that I make my brain sit down. And perhaps, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how many centuries you do this. my axis line is way too close to the center. And even though I thought I did it, amazing, amazing. So it's not even, not even, it's not even. Wow. All right. So this is something that you may want to check because your brain will go nuts. It will say, no, this is not where it is. Your hand is not going to do it. And in fact, it is there. It is there. So sometimes what I do is to bypass that super hardwired kind of like habit is to rely on other things. I rely on distances. I rely on the silhouette. I try to, if you don't have the same image, I mean the same image, a printout of the image. What you can do is literally just break it in half and see how far it is from the actual center of the face. Or my suggestion is to use distortion and exaggeration because you may be more accurate if you think you're pushing your portrait than if you go by what you think you're seeing. So yeah. Oh, and I should say it's a portrait. It's us. And likeness, I don't, that's the at the bottom of my list of criteria. And please just move that likeness to the very bottom of whatever list of criteria you may have. It's not important. It's the least important part of the process. So it's not easy because that always comes up and it always wants to be number one. And it's the reason that it makes our little critical voices say that what we're doing is wrong. So I'm learning to push that down. Likeness, no, it's not like, it is our self-portrait. I don't care what we do. And I don't care what it looks like. It's our self-portrait because the image source, it's us, and it's us who are translating it. So by definition, we are already successful in doing this. So there. Okay, let me just set up the bottom, the nose, and then maybe the mouth. I'm just gonna check and see more or less. All right, and again, notice what I'm doing. I am not starting by doing the silhouette and relying on a point blank guesstimate that my brain is telling me to do, because I know that that will make me fail, and that's a pretty harsh word to say. But what I do is rely on observation, but at the same time on other things. So before I do the mouth and before I do the shape of the nose, I make sure that I work by the axis line and see where it is approximately and realize that it's not where I thought it was going to be. And then rather than making the actual shape of the nose, I first set up what I think the height is going to be, the elevation. I never start like right away with, I may make them too small, or which is generally what happens. We make things too small. I don't know exactly why, but well, I have a theory, but anyhow, so. All right, so I think this is it. Let me just see the neck. We have this, it's not a muscle, but I invite you to turn your head 3/4 and with your hand, just notice that there's this, I think it's a muscle that goes from behind the ear. So yeah, mine is just a little bit, I have like hair. But anyhow, when you do the neck, we have a tendency of making them too narrow and they look like lollipop. I mean, we look like, or the heads look like lollipop heads, you know, because the neck is not wide enough. Our heads are very heavy. I think it's one of the heaviest part of, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of like thinking, I should just know that before I just spew it. It's very heavy, that I know. So our bodies are beautifully designed to support that weight. And that's why our necks are so complex and complicated and intricate and strong and wider than we think they are. So let me just bring that neck on this side and the neck on the other side. And we tend to make the necks shorter and our heads look really close, way too close to the necks. So check that as well. And if you think, trust your intuition. If you think it's too close, but you think you're measuring it right, but it still feels too close, exaggerate it, distort it, just pull it away. There's no reason why we should just go by what we see and not exactly, but what intuition tells us. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah. All right, so I think, okay, so I think I am okay with this. And perhaps now I'm gonna focus, I have some time. Let me just see if I can focus on the nose. So what I do is I try to do the bottom of the nose first. So I'm just gonna see if I can just do the pointy, in my case, there's a pointy tip. I forgot the name. We did nose anatomy not a while ago, and that was really helpful. The nostril, I'm not doing, yeah, and then the tip of the nose, which is round or roundish, and then the other nostril, okay. I have a shadow, a lost shadow here, a lost edge, sorry, I'm gonna talk about that, but the lips, line between the lips first. I'm so happy that my beard's covering the lips so I don't have to deal with that. Bottom of the lip and then the shade underneath. So I'm just gonna keep it sort of like this for now, shading it. I think that's okay for now. The nasolabial fold, I'm not gonna call it a wrinkle because it's not a wrinkle, it's a fold. The nasolabial fold is the line that runs from the outer part of the nostril, and it ends up closer or hovering above the corner of the mouth. Find out where your nasolabial folds are, because when we do the skin tone, we tend to kind of like wipe it off and make it all the same value, and then it just looks strange. And yeah, so I'm just gonna do my nasolabial fold. All right, so I think it's here, so that's what I'm gonna do. I should have done the hairline. When I did the hairline of the hair, I should have done the beard also. So, all right, mustache, let me just do it now, it's okay. And I already lost the lips, but that's okay. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna stop here, and I'm so happy that we kind of like went over this quickly. Let's start shading, just because shading is gonna give us even further details and further information and data that we can use to push the painting forward and not start decorating too early. And I'm sorry I used that word. So so I have the cast shadow. Find out where your cast shadows are. So I'm lucky to have one cast shadow right here. So that indicates me that the light direction, I have another cast shadow underneath the blindfold. Good. So that already indicates me that there is this light direction going this way. So this is the light direction. And that means the neck's gonna be a little darker on this side. It means the skin tone is gonna be a little bit darker here. Let me just block out the hair, darker to lighter. It's a good way to deconstruct. I'm just gonna work on the folds a little bit. Here we go. All right, the hair, and then the cast shadow. I'm gonna bring the kneaded eraser just because I wanna clean that edge. All right, not too bad. I just have enough to jump to staining, and I just wanna make sure that I don't have too much to feel that this is too precious to ruin. So and that's the key. Make it a crocus, make it a draft. A sketch is not a drawing. It's just a, 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 a draft of a plan. Um, Charcoal is so wonderful that we get, okay, I think that's okay. I'm so happy about the movement. Let's just go back about all those things. I have enough movement on top. I think that's great. I like the size. I left a little bit more space on the side that the orientation is directed towards. I don't know. I'm not going to go to grammar heaven. I know. Perhaps ideally I would have liked this to be a little bit more towards the left, just because it would have given me a little bit more space. But that's okay. It's just I think I like it. All right, you got your palette picture. So Lois, shout out to you for encouraging us to do that so we don't have to go over it. So those are like already 5 precious minutes. And speaking of shout outs, I'm gonna send 3 just because you guys are amazing. From the New Forest, Hania, thank you for joining us across the globe, and we're always so humbled. And so we're really thankful. And Deborah and Beth, thanks so much for joining us. We're so excited, and we want to recognize your commitment and the fact that you join. You're in a different time frame, and I don't know, it just feels so exciting and nice that we can connect with such great distance, time and space. So thank you. And everyone else. Yeah, but of course, the rest are like that, whatever. No, I'm joking. Okay, I just don't have, I don't drink coffee, and I didn't have my tea this morning. So I don't know. I'm just happy that we're doing this. Happy new lunar year, by the way. Oh, I'm just going to start the wash, big brush, turpentine or mineral spirits. And then the wash, it's a very technical stage. And I say very technical because it has a very narrow function. The function is to prime the paper, seal the charcoal, period. So we need a wet surface in order to build the layers. And by the way, Marlene Duma artwork, the first blindfold that I showed, artist from South Africa who lives in Netherlands, that's exactly how she works. And we can go back perhaps in a few minutes and see how underdeveloped the work feels, but how emotional it is and dramatic. So yeah, anyhow, so perfect. All right, so let's just do this. And I'm gonna focus on neutral. So even with the face, perhaps I'll just let me see, darker to lighter. Let's start with that. And I feel I'm gonna do the warm black. So darker to lighter, big, bold, fast, unafraid strokes. Don't be too careful or tidy here. It's like, we need to dump everything before we reorganize it. So that's my approach. I mean, I'm just, I know that you guys have different plans and different ways of approaching this, but I just want to accomplish as much as I can. Because we were talking about this last night, actually, how the way we like to approach this is in a very organic way, which means that every time we do a pass or a session, we'll feel something that we'll need to integrate or we'll need to subdue in order to make sure that it feels integrated. So it feels very organic. Things move all the time. And the reason why, I should say, the reason why I mentioned this, it's because I showed a video of an art academy in Italy. I'm sorry, but that has been haunting me for days. Dozens of people. I mean, I wish we had, honestly, we had that success. Just painting the same subject, which is not an offensive idea. We've brought subjects that we painted, or we all had the same subject because conceptually it made sense. That's not the bad part, because sometimes that happens and that's it. But they were all traced, um, carbon copy trace on the exact same format, and everyone was working to match the exact same image. There's no organic nothing there. There's just pure labor. There's no translation. There's no genuine infusion of our own artistic soul in there. It's just empty, an empty shell. So even though it was offensive to watch, in my opinion, um, uh, it was very helpful to understand that keeping our process organic is important and crucial. Don't feel like any of the lines that you have will remain permanent. Things will move as we build, as as they should. The more we have, um, the more we add, the more relationships will get established, and then we'll make our artistic decisions about that. It's just, it feels like that's what creativity is, in my opinion. Of course, everyone has a different opinion of everything these days, and we should respect that. But I don't respect that setup. It's just awful. Um, I don't know. All right, so darker to lighter, I'm using a neutral, and the idea is to just prime the surface. We were just also talking, and we'll show some of those images. We were talking about this movement or group. I believe, was it in the Netherlands? I think it was in the Netherlands, in the mid-20s, 1925 to 1935, I believe, a group of painters that they did realism, but they brought an expressionist approach to it. So the colors are vibrant. They were not concerned about proportions or anything. And it's like almost a century old movement, but the work is fantastic. So I am just going to do the skin tone, and I think it's either the printer said that the printer said, the printer talked to me and said that it was low on blue toner. I don't know. So I feel like my skin looks very orange. So I'm using a little bit of ecru and burnt sienna. Whoa, as a base. Let me just bring more turpentine because this is a little bit too oily. It's not too bad. Yeah. So I know that this is just the beginning, but maybe I have orange skin. I don't know. Maybe it's the camera. Who knows? Sorry. It's just because the clown that I was painting last week and this week, it was so faded and purple and lavender that I feel like now anything that feels like a skin tone. We're going to talk about skin tones and what colors we will need more colors on our palette. By the way, I can tell you that right now, especially for skin tones. Please bring out the alizarin crimson, the queen of reds, the best red there is, not the cadmium red. It's not a good red. It's a good red, but it's not the most important red. I have some blue here, so maybe paints gray. So traditionally this stage was done just with one neutral, and that was burnt sienna. And in fact, we talked about, and Jen, you posted it before, some paint manufacturers, they produce a burnt sienna specifically for staining, specifically. It's more transparent, so that's what it is. So I'm just gonna bring maybe some, should I bring some of the blue? Yeah. I like to wash everything. so there's not a dry spot. Why, yeah. So bring your rag and have it ready just in case something you want to manipulate something. So and the beard, so I'm just going to bring some perhaps gray. If I want something super light, then I use more turpentine. I'm in the staining stage still. So there you go. So the staining stage, big, bold brush strokes with very thin consistency paint. What we want is to create a wet surface or prime the paper. You may be working with different painting surface. So let me just move from format at the beginning to painting surface. We're using cotton paper, but if you're using a canvas, that's gonna be one challenge. If you're using pre-gessoed wood panel, that's just gonna be a different challenge, sorry. So it just depends on the painting surface. You may need more turpentine or less turpentine or a little bit more paint. Drips are of course okay. If you're working vertically, naturally they're okay. But if everything drips, then maybe increase the consistency with a little bit more paint, because perhaps it's an indication that the ratio between the liquid, the mineral spirit, and the paint should change. It's not a big deal. It's not like there's something wrong with it. But yeah, I said like the warm black. Let me just bring this warm black. Self portraits are amazing, and they are our best chance and our best opportunity to do figure painting. I don't know, I just have like a major appreciation, and they have contributed so much to improving other portraits. I just feel like it's very good to regularly tackle that for technical reasons. And then let's not even go to how important it is to capture ourselves throughout our lives. I just feel there's something really powerful and bold. Yeah, let's not hide. Let's not hide. We are hiding enough already. I think as artists, we know the stakes, but we still decide to kind of like hide a little bit. So self-portrait, it's a good way to push ourselves out there. Our faces change. I mean, is that the... I feel like everyone's horrified by that fact. Our faces changed constantly from week to week, and at any age, I don't care. So I don't know, I just feel like maybe it's a good way to psychologically deal with that change. So if we're able to do a portrait, I'm gonna bring some green, and also I'm gonna bring the alizarin crimson already. I'm just gonna have it set up. Always, we highly recommend you group together your paint tubes. If you have them in a paint box, group them together in a bag or Ziploc or cotton bag, whatever you want. But it's nice to have them together so it's easier to find, because as we mention all the time, I used to have a paint box and everything was in it, and I would just close it and walk away. But then when I needed a color, I had to dig and read the labels. And I would just spend like whatever time. And of course, the color I wanted didn't show up. And then I had to pull the colors out of the paint box. And then one by one, where is the damn green or purple? And finally, it's just exhausting. And when you are so, it may seem hilarious and funny, but when you are so engaged with the process, that you forget to drink and eat and everything. Um, it's a major interruption when you have to find a color and you don't find it. It's frustrating. I think, um, I don't know, it seems superficial, but it's not. I'm gonna bring sap green. Sap green, also we learned, thanks to Darlene and Laura, shout out to you guys. We learned that it's a much better green to use for botanical elements. It has more yellow, which if you have a window and you look outside, everything that's botanical has tons of yellow, tons of yellow. So sap green, excellent tone. I think I'm just gonna mix the sap green with um, a little bit of the Van Dyke brown to tone it down. And then I'm just gonna bring that with a bolt, and yeah, I think that's good. Hopefully I'll be able to do my wash before the first hour, which is not bad because between the introduction and everything, I think it's still good timing considering that we're doing a portrait. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm doing um, right now, working fast. Don't worry about what your painting looks like. It doesn't matter. That's the truth. It doesn't matter what your painting looks like at this stage. We're still working at um, building our foundation. It's so early to kind of like make decisions. And it's not early to make decisions. Let me correct myself. It's too early to make judgments. That's a different aspect of it. I think that's okay. So yeah, don't concentrate too much about likeness. Again, put it at the bottom. This is not what's important right now. It's not what's important. All right, so I think I'm good. Again, the function, it's more technical than anything. It's the most technical part of the whole process because the function of this is very narrow. Prime the paper, oh my gosh. Prime the paper and seal the charcoal, period. Think color fields. A color field, it's a field that it's not constrained or limited or compartmentalized. Color fields, just vast areas of color that don't have a specific edge yet. That's what this stage is about. I think that's good. I'm thinking already might be it. So more things will come up. You know, I already see things that I want to kind of like check and test and move around and things like that. But that's okay. I'm just going to do it later. All right. So let me just kind of like move. All right. Okay. So yay. I do even 5 minutes before the first hour. So that's not bad. So I recommend, suggest, encourage everyone to watch the whole thing. I have a hard time leaving blank spaces just because I feel like they're so influential and they just get to me. And it almost feels like they want me, they push me to work, or they push me not to work on the painting. Let me just explain that. So if I just work on 2 hours on the nose and then everything's empty, I wake up tomorrow and I feel, well, there's more undone than there is done. So maybe it's not worth working on this. And I'm being completely honest. That's exactly how an empty space can impact your drive to pull yourself together and sit down in front of a painting. Wash everything. Start with one. Break the blank space. Don't leave any open areas or pristine areas. They will condition your decisions. So my advice. You know, some people, what they do, they watch the entire thing and that's done, and then they sketch over it. I like to work with the sketch a little bit more, but bottom line is that you may have seen it. And in that video of what I call a paint farm or a painting farm, that everyone's doing the same thing, that's precisely what they're doing. They just go 1 square inch at a time. It would just drive me nuts. And I'm sorry, I should say, try a different approach. Try doing a wash, layering. It's oil, it's supposed to be layered. So another reason why I like to, and let me be less emotional and more specific. It's because when I wash everything, I can recognize areas that need to be already moved and readjusted. If I only work with one area and everything else is blank, I don't have that opportunity to establish relationships between different things. So I'm working with a blindfold, no pun intended. All right, so I'm just gonna move to the medium brush. Let me just bring my where are my old hairy guys? All right, I have 2 that are my faves. So one is messed up around the edges. So let me see if I can just, yeah, it's just like short hairs around the edges, but it has this spiky mohawk. So I think that's a good one. And the other one, it's completely frayed. Oh yeah, there he is. Oops, no, this one is not. Just talking about having way too many brushes ready. Oh yeah, I found him. Okay, perfect. So this is the other one. It's a little bit more frayed. It has more of a length, but those are good because the next step is first notes. So what I'm going to try to do is try to piece together mosaic-like areas on my painting. So I went from color fields, the analogy, sort of like not segregated or determined by an edge, to pieces or mosaic-like sections that I could block out. So I think that's a good analogy. So you don't want something that's too pointy right now or that creates too many hard edges, in my opinion, just because you're gonna overlook this stage in which it's important to still not commit to an edge and be able to move things around organically. Again, I'm using this word a lot today. So that's why I don't use something very specific or sharp. If I use something sharp, this is what happens. I start sketching, which is what we're gonna do right now, but it just becomes excessively linear. So then I'll find myself resketching constantly. So I feel like, you know, I'm just gonna, yeah, and I'm gonna switch my liquids, sorry. I'm gonna move from the mineral spirits to the combination of oil and medium. And that's entirely based on your own preference. But the core idea is that the second liquid has more of a viscose, more viscosity, more of a thicker consistency compared to the mineral spirits. That's the core idea. The function, there are dozens of brands and kinds of liquids. So one speeds up the drying, one slows it down. We can go about that later, but the core idea is use a liquid that gives you a little bit more consistency. Darker to lighter, it's always a safe way to find order in your application of brushstrokes. And finally, I'm just because I love it and because I have a photograph, I'm gonna use this paint hack or painting hack because I like to understand and study the color mixing that I'm doing. I know that when I mix color, my brain says, yep, that's the color. And then it couldn't be further from the actual color. So I don't trust my brain. I'd rather trust something else, or compare the color with a color sample. So getting like a cellophane, or cutting open a Ziploc and just doing tests over the photograph if you can, or just comparing it with your brush against the screen. It's always a good idea. So maybe I'll use a smaller brush to create smaller color samples, not my hairy guy. This is perfect. So done with this color. What color is this? It's a little lighter. So always value first. Value first. When you create a color, just check the value first. Imagine it's black and white, and then just check the value. Okay, that's good. And then once you have that value approximately matching the value of the painting, very good. Then you could move the needle in regards to the temperature. There's not a single path or a specific formula to create or to go from point A to point B color-wise. There are many ways to achieve that. You can depart from a very limited palette and still get it, or just bring the supportive extra colors and then maybe just go in a different direction. But there's never one specific formula to create a specific value and temperature. That's why the idea of moving the needle works for me. I just have to tweak by finding colors that make it lighter or make it darker. So we also organize a palette by value. If you notice, it goes from darker to lighter, not just from or organized by neutrals. So that means that we have a lot of colors in our palette that have a lot of white. Maybe not a lot of colors, but yeah, we have a lot of colors that contain a lot of white. So sometimes when I want to make a color lighter, I'm not directly going to titanium or zinc white. I could just use ecru, or perhaps the periwinkle blue, or the salmon rose. Those colors have a lot of white. Just depends. All right, so I was able to identify. Let me just switch to the hairy guy, and then try to resketch. So in a way, I am resketching, but it feels more like a color block. And there is a difference. You can even experiment. If you want, give it a try yourself. Have more of a wider brush that can create a mosaic-like facet or piece, and then have something pointier. And switch between them both and see what happens. One will give you more of a drawing capacity, and the other one will block it out. So at this stage, first notes, I prefer to use the one that blocks out. I can work faster. This is, and be ready for my second notes. Yeah, in a faster way. So this is a perfect example of the difference between first notes and second notes. I'm going to do the blindfold one single color. And that would be a perfect example of a first note. Doesn't have to have variations right now. It had a little bit of burnt sienna. Yeah, and maybe a little bit of ecru. I think so. Just going to give it a try. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing right now. So building that bigger mosaic piece. Perhaps at this stage, I am those color fields without fences or anything separating them. I am creating by the nature of the paint, meaning having a little bit more consistency. I am already determining limitations or separations between things. So by the nature of the paint, but the idea is to just create one color block. First notes, bring color blocks, build your first pieces. This is also preliminary work. It's necessary work before we actually tackle details and stuff like that. My brush stroke, I just try not to be too conforming. I constantly flicker my eyes back and forth to see there's a little bit of a drop here to see if there is something that I have missed. I think that's okay. Trying to keep the consistency. I feel lazy sometimes and I just dump more oil thinking that that's gonna stretch the color that I got, that I thought it was just perfect, stretch it a little bit further, but then I compromise the consistency of the paint and ultimately it just feels too washed out. So I just have to make more paint. I can't get away with it. Man, perhaps we could, but ultimately we have to make more paint. You know, we were talking, Lois, you brought this, the Procreate, the app or the software that allows, a lot of painters are using it. It's a good way to practice and stuff. But how nice is it not to make the paint with that software or app? Okay, so this is a good example of a first note. Block it. I was a little bit conscious about the edges. So in a way, I try to draw using the hairy guy by creating a stop or a difference or a distinction. Okay, so let me just bring this shadows also with that big brush. I heard or I read from a painter and it kind of like stuck with me. I feel it's a good advice. Always try to work with a brush bigger than the one you would feel comfortable using. And it just makes sense. I mean, at first you read that and say like, well, that's stupid. You know, why do I want to make myself feel uncomfortable? But it is precisely that stepping outside of the comfort level that can increase opportunities to create more unexpected things by chance, which is something that the oil is so good at. Just bringing, maybe that's a little bit more Payne's gray. Of course, I didn't use the paint hack all the time, because there's something nice about interpreting the colors ourselves. But I do, yeah, I do kind of like use it once in a while. I'll use it more with second notes. So blocking, I need more paint. This is a little bit too thin. And darker to lighter. So I'm not just kind of like finishing. First of all, that doesn't exist. Finishing one area. I am moving from one dark area to another one that feels around it. And I'm using the big brush. I don't want to commit too much to an edge because I know things will move around. So why do I want to put myself in a box. I don't want to put myself in a box. Just want to keep things a little bit more open. So then I could just slowly rein in that shape and then become or make it a little bit more of my liking. It's a little bit of gray here. So those mosaic pieces, think stained glass windows, building images by sections or puzzle-like pieces. That's the idea, that's the concept. And the bigger brush, paint brushes will help you get there. And it seems it just doesn't make sense to not be specific now. It's like, you know what, I want to start being specific now. I don't want to just beat around the bush. But it's not just beating around the bush. It's just keeping opportunities open and not setting ourselves back into a corner. That's what it's about. Forget about the photographic aspect of the image source. Very conditioning, or so we want to make sure that we have some room to make changes. I think that's okay. I just left a little bit on the back. Yeah, that's not too bad. Background, peripheral areas. Let's just talk about those a little bit darker here. I'm not going to do leaves right now. And by the way, I have a painting of me wearing a mask from 2020 that I really like, and it just means a lot. And that's why I chose the same background or a similar background, because I feel like, you know, it could pair really well with that painting. A year later, I'm covering my eyes. I think it's kind of like a joke. Um, a mask and a mask, a mask and a mask. So I'm just gonna bring this green with more oil. I just need more oil and perhaps some yellow ochre. I just brought some Payne's Gray, and Payne's Gray, it's too blue. And I'm kind of like moving perhaps a bit too much away from the botanical quality. Maybe not, and there's a lot of like blue in the light. Oh, maybe Jen, you can help us. I know this is probably going to be a little bit too technical. So when I was, we were talking about the light bulbs, which I need to send this because I think it was very, very important. The lumens and the watts, the Kelvin and the lumens. I'm sorry, the Kelvin scale and the lumens. I found a scale that went from cold light to warm light, and then in the middle there was white light. So I know that during the day there's one point, and I forgot the name of it, where the sun is at its highest, and that moment during the day, it's not the same time every day, and it just changes. It's when the light, it's the widest. So can you find out what's the name of the term that determines the highest point of the sun each day? And then maybe we can find when it is today.
Yes.
Sorry. That's total science stuff. Not very painter. It is painterly. Just because, you know, it makes a difference. Knowing when the wider light it's going to be. So yeah, I'll send the tutorial or presentation to the people who took the webinar on Friday, last Friday. This is a little bit lighter. This light right here, it's a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna bring some ecru. Yeah, I think that's good. But don't disregard or, yeah, I think disregard or dismiss the importance of the background. Extremely important to contextualize your portrait. Extremely important.
Do the words solar noon sound correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so it varies according to season.
I mean, I wonder, since the sunset time and the sunrise, they change about a minute a day. I wonder if that also moves the same way, you know? I'm not sure. I'm just curious.
So it says the shortest time spans occurs twice a year, For the same reason, solar noon and clock noon are usually not the same. The equation of time shows that the reading of a clock at solar noon will be higher or lower than 12 by as much as 16 minutes. Additionally, due to the political nature of time zones, it can be off by more than an hour.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So it's not like it's interesting. It's not, I mean, the time frame, it's not that big.
Right.
Yeah. So it's mostly around noon. So bottom line, every day. Correct?
Yeah, within probably like half an hour either way of
Okay.
noon. But, you know, noon, depending on daylight savings time, like it says, changes. So like nature noon might not be clock noon.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. It makes absolute sense. And I think it's very important. Anyhow, so I think that solar noon is when the when the light is the lightest, and it may even cast some blue notes in certain spots and bleach colors and under a bluish cast. Whereas sometimes if it's morning or when we paint it later in the day, like I remember like at Jennifer's house, that was orange. It was orange light. So then you bring the pinks and you bring the oranges, or yeah, the orange.
Yeah, and I wonder too if, you know, this might be a stupid statement, but you know, that air quality makes a difference too. You know, does our solar noon look different because of our air quality compared to like Montana?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, absolutely. That's a brilliant point. And I mean, I don't go often, but when we go, and Palm Springs is not like it's super clean either. I mean, it's much cleaner than LA, but the light is different. And when we went, you guys, yeah, Beth and Deborah, when we went to Palm Springs, the light quality, it's different. And oh hi, Julie, the light quality is different. Yeah, absolutely, Jen, you're absolutely right. You just feel it.
Right.
Right?
Totally. Is it wrong to say that sometimes I prefer LA's light quality?
A little bit.
Yeah, I know. I know
course.
it is.
No. Of course it's not. No.
Oh man, I'm like the Grinch.
No.
No, but there's something about the hanging in the air, the heaviness of the air,
right,
that can bring something really different and, dare I say, beautiful.
Good.
That I didn't grow up with. You know.
I like that. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. No, I'm glad you brought that. You know, it's good. It's very good. All right, so Thanks, Jen. That was just excellent and perfect. And um, also added to the knowledge that we have now when the light is widest and how the scale of the Kelvin scale changes in outdoor lighting, and how when it pertains to our own practice, we should try to keep our light that we work under consistent, as consistent as possible. And that's why it's so important to have a very specific source of light, and with a certain Kelvin whatever range, so we can work at any time, nighttime, daytime. And I have the light on right now, just because, yeah, uh, to keep that consistency. I'm done with my, I think I'm done. Wait, let me just bring some grays. Where's the hairy guy thing? And I am just going to, no, I'm not done. I'm not done. Okay, so let me just study the skin tone. Perhaps that could be the beginning of skin tone advice or session. Or so I try to find a part of the skin that feels medium. Medium meaning that it's between a darker shadow and a lighter highlight. And that would be essentially the core of the skin tone. As a first note, I have to find something that it's in between, so I can block everything with that color. So it just depends on the skin. It was so good to do that Kamala Harris portrait. So good, because there was something so gorgeous and beautiful about her, the color of her skin, the color of her skin. I usually start with as a base, regardless of the skin color, either with ecru and burnt sienna, or ecru and the salmon rose, or the radiant red paint. So I'm gonna do burnt sienna and salmon rose. And then first thing that I do, I'm just gonna be right here. I check the value, always the value first. And this paint is way too dark. This mixture is way too dark. So I think I'm just gonna use some white first and see if I can get a mixture. I'm not even thinking about the painting or the paint right now matching, or I wanna just get that value a little bit lighter. I think that's okay, value-wise. Okay, so now that I have a value that I approximately feel like it's within the range, now I'm gonna move the needle of the temperature, and this feels not orange enough. So I think instead of I'm gonna bring the alizarin crimson, but perhaps for this thing specifically, I should just bring the cadmium orange. Am I crazy? I don't know. I'm gonna find out. But I just feel like I'm gonna bring the cadmium orange, because the cadmium orange has a lot more white in it. I cannot close it. That's okay. And I don't want to use burnt sienna because it's quite dark, and I feel I'm going to start darkening the mixture. So that's my thought process. I'm going to bring some of the cadmium orange and see how that needle moves. Okay, so that was a good decision, but I feel like now it has a little bit too much yellow. So I don't want to mix too many colors. I'm going to try to bring some of the burnt sienna again and see if I can bring some, or I can subdue the yellow, because during the Kamala Harris, we realized that our paint tends to have a yellow cast because of the mineral composition. And one of the challenges that we face is that we need to compensate and rather compensate, counterbalance the yellowing in our pigments, the yellowing, the mineral yellowing. And it's something that it never, yeah, I need to bring the alizarin crimson. Alizarin, so it's going to be a combination of alizarin crimson and um, the cadmium orange. And that's why studying the color, understanding, unpacking it, deconstructing it, um, bringing criteria like how much yellow there is. Do I need to counterbalancing? And that's why the alizarin crimson is great to turn off the yellowing on, if you need to turn it off, of course. I'm just talking about my own skin tone right here. So in my case, I do need to turn it off. I need to bring a little bit more red. Alizarin crimson, we even brought it when we did the clouds. Remember, that blue wasn't just blue. Okay, so now it is absolutely, it's so rewarding when we are faced with challenges and then it just feels like, you know, oh my gosh, I'm not getting it, or, but then when we achieve sort of like a breakthrough, the happiness I get, it's just so rewarding. So yeah, I got the skin color. And I understand now that it's 4 colors. It's not that much. So 4 colors. Burnt sienna in different ratio, but we don't have to be specific about how much. And but burnt sienna, ecru, I mean, I'm sorry, the pink, the light pink, and then um, orange, cadmium orange, and alizarin crimson. How about that? Wow. Talk about studying our own, our or getting to know ourselves through making the color of our own skin. There you go. That's pretty powerful, in my opinion. One of the reasons why I love, say, self-portraits so much. So this is so good. So yeah, I'm just gonna block it. Oh, where's my old hairy guy? Here I am, like making way too many. Let's just kind of like follow the script. Is that some white, some orange? I'm gonna be a little bit sloppy with the mixture of the paint. It doesn't have to be specific. I'm just doing first notes still first notes. So I don't have to be exact. Oh, so good. I'm so happy I spent a little bit of time deconstructing, well, deconstructing, that sounds very pompous, analyzing, studying the skin tone. It's just not that, it's easy to make skin tone. Whoa, that's very red. What happened? I blame the printer. So it's easy to make a skin tone. You can just mix, I mean, those 2 colors, ecru and burnt sienna, they give you kind of like a tan color. So you can find books that tell you mix this and that, maybe a little bit of blue and stuff like that. But then this is what happened. This is what happens. We end up painting every single portrait with the exact same skin tone. And I can just, I can see artists that I know and just doing the same exact skin tone, the same skin tone. And that's not how it works. I'm even going to put that on the lips for now and on the neck. I'm just gonna make variations. Oh my gosh, it's my brain is like going nuts right now. It's saying, no, this is wrong. You look too red and too dark. But then if I compare to the photograph, that's actually the skin tone on the photograph. So don't trust, our brains are not to be trusted. Bottom line, they're not to be trusted. How about that? how about the fact we have a little bit of alizarin crimson? It just makes sense. And I'll tell you a very scientific thing about it. We have all these amazing capillaries underneath our skin. And and our skin, it's not fully opaque. So naturally that alizarin crimson is there because of the blood circulation underneath the skin. Of course, I'm generalizing here because it just depends on so many factors, but um, this is something, the neck has a little bit more of yellow, but I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to be, I'm going to stick to what I just said about blocking first notes and what it actually looks like. And here we go. So this is what it looks like. And finally, and I don't mind that I'm only having half an hour. I don't mind. And actually, I think it would be a good idea. Let's not rush and really learn and take the opportunity to grow and apply what we've learned by doing my final first note, which is the gray of the beard, because I think it's gray, right? But my brain is like, yeah, just make some gray and maybe white, and you're done. Well, maybe maybe he's right today. Now I'm saying gray and white. I thought it was a little bit more interesting, but no. So just bringing the gray and the white and blah. It's just very blah. The skin made me so excited, and this is so boring, but all right, it is what it is. I'm just gonna bring it. And then perhaps that's also a good way to go from complex and complicated, and then just do a little something simpler, like mixture wise. And I'll bring some Van Dyke brown because the hair here, it's not bluish. Hey, hairy guy. Let's do this. Van Dyke brown. Yeah, let's just stick to that strategy of blocking with a bigger brush and not stick to finalizing. I'm sorry, I'm just getting distracted. Never mind, scratch the last 5 seconds. I don't even know what I was going to say. So I'm just almost done with the first notes. I'm happy that we went a little faster because we don't have eyes. And at least we got first notes, and we have half an hour to work on second notes. So it's going to give us an opportunity to explain what those are, how do they look like, how, what does it mean to kind of like apply them, and what can we do about it. So that's going to be good. A little bit darker here. Again, I'm using this, maybe just blend this bigger brush that doesn't give me a specific edge, just because I want to leave things a little bit open. So when I go back with my second notes, then I can then be a little bit more specific and perhaps establish more of a specific edge. All right, so this is, I'm done with my second notes, and I'm very happy the way it looks. I feel like it's okay, and blocking out some areas, possibly I could just block some more, but let me just kind of clarify that I like to move in stages, and the staining and the first notes are two different things. And now I'm going to explain what second notes are. I talked about color fields, broad and not limited. I talked about first notes, more of like color blocked, and second notes is more about pixelating, um, a pixelated brushstroke that creates highs and lows in value within the first block. So I'm building slowly from swaths of color to blocks of color to pixels of color. And what I'm going to do is maybe I'll start with, even though I should start with darker to lighter. Let's follow the script, darker to lighter, because I want to do the bone structure. But for example, here, what it means is just going back to my palette, finding out, if I can, the color history that allowed me to study and understand the combination of pigments to create this color, and then bringing lighter notes and darker notes. I should say darker notes first, and then lighter notes to create highs and lows. I'm not adding colors just for the sake of it. I'm not just adding stuff just because I think it's going to make it prettier or better. I'm just sticking to a method or a process in which I built on what I've done. And this is very specific. Traditionally, it's very old school, this approach. Traditionally, stick with that color and create variations. I'm gonna put the hairy guys on standby, and then I'm gonna bring a brush. I'm changing the brush again, either a small brush, but it's a brush with a cat's tongue shape. It's flat because the ferrule, which is the metallic part, it's flat, but it doesn't end. Let me see if I can just put it really close. Look at the cat's tongue here. Okay, here we go. It's round on the top. It's like a makeup tutorial. I should do this. Does that work? Actually, it does work. Yeah, so that's the shape. So it's kind of like has a round shape on top. The toes of the brush, the bristles, are round, and the heels of the brush are flat.
Yay! That was awesome.
Oh, thanks, Jen. All right, so let's do it. Darker. I think I see, let me see. I'm gonna do a color test, a little color sample. I feel like I see some Payne's Gray. No, sorry, my brain is not correct. It's Van Dyke Brown. It's Van Dyke Brown. All right. So Van Dyke Brown, and then I said I'm gonna do the darker notes. I barely put any medium. I feel like I have enough wetness, so I don't need, it just depends. Sometimes I put some medium, sometimes I don't, but generally speaking, I feel like there's enough wetness in the layers underneath to start painting with certain fluidity, and at the same time giving me the capacity to block the layers underneath. Excellent, great. So I'm just gonna continue with those darker notes. Why the cat's tongue? Just because it's more specific. So I'm moving in a very organic, again, sorry, I'm pestering you with this word, but in a very organic way, I'm moving from something that feels a little bit less defining to now something that allows me to make a final decision. I can see now where exactly I want that edge. I know it's going to change still, but there's a difference between doing it a step prior and then setting that as a final mark, which I know that it's not going to be, compared to allowing that to be a little bit less defining and now having the opportunity to be more confident. I wouldn't say accurate, because I know that this will change, but I have more reference here. I have more practice under my belt also. That's also important because we uh, underestimate the minutes that we spend observing and changing. They're not wasted. They're never wasted. Um, so I'm working slowly, always flickering my eyes, trying to compare my position with peripheral areas on the around the area that I'm working. Um, if you notice, I did most of the blending on my palette, and I try not to do too much blending on the paper. And why is that important? Because I feel I can experiment, I can try, test um, comfortably on the palette, study, do different samples. And then when I feel like I'm okay with what I've got, then I can just work here. But if I don't think or do the work of studying the color on my palette and I jump on the painting, I know that I'll have to change it, and then I bring more paint, and then it looks too much this or too much like that. All the things that I did in the palette, adding some red or adding some orange. If I just blend them right here, it will be a total mess in the sense that I will kind of like be stirring paint, just like stirring the paint here, and see if by gambling it, I will get it. It's just yeah, I'm not a good gambler, so it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. I advise to do most of your blending and studying, and it requires work, you guys, on your palette. So then you block, again, I mean, this sounds mean, but when I stick to the script, saying, you know what, I could be flexible, but if I encourage myself to follow that, I feel like I reach a point where everything is so helpful and I advance the work so much that I can reach that stage where I can enjoy the painting much faster. So these are second notes, and this is officially all we've done in the first hour and a half is to prep our painting for this. What happened before, it was all preparatory framework, foundational stuff. Now we're finally painting. Now with the second notes, we are actually bringing, the illusion comes out. The edges can be a little bit more defined. This is how much work it takes to get the painting to a stage in which we can start now engaging in a more satisfying way. I don't know. Right, I have the color, and I feel there is some sort of pink there on the highlight. So on a different part of my palette, I'm going to try to study that color. That's way too light. It's just so amazing that for a few years we use raw umber as our main neutral brown. I just feel like every day or every week I rely more on Van Dyke brown and less on raw umber. I mean, I don't know. I think that's amazing. It speaks of how important it is to constantly be open. No, this is not happening. This is not happening. There is some purple there. I'm gonna bring some red. Amazing, amazing. Just kind of like experimenting, mixing, doing all your testing. Yeah, on your palette, comparing. Absolutely, how nuts. It has a little bit of blue and a little bit of red. Talk about totally unexpected. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so that helped me tremendously. to bring the lighter version. I started with a darker, the lighter version on the blindfold, and I need to put less paint on my cat's tongue brush, just because it's only a little bit of a blush on the fabric. It's not, doesn't have a found edge. Let's put it this way. A found edge is when there's a clear distinction between two different things or two different surfaces. But there's no, and in this case, the opposite is a lost edge. That's something that we learned when we did the tutorial of edges, which was also really good. So I realized that what I'm painting right now has a lost edge. That's why I'm not using too much paint. And I'm being a little bit more specific. So I'm not blending. I'm not blending. And what's important to understand also is that there's a lot of visual blending that happens when someone observes the painting. I feel like we put too much emphasis in creating super soft transitions, and sometimes that is required. But we underestimate the power of how things blend visually on a painting. This brings me back to the series of our pillows, which was such an excellent practice of fabric folds. Remember when we talked about how to make the folds? Start with the dark marks first, or you set up the geometry of the fabric fold, the draped effect, and then just pair it with a light version of the color near. And then you can just, with a clean brush, blend. So there's that here, fabric. Start with your darks, set up that geometry of the draped, the direction, the tension, the looseness. Your dark shadows determine all of that. And then start bringing your lighter notes, which happen usually nearby the darker areas. And then you can blend very timidly, very carefully. We started like I started saying, dump everything on your painting. Well, now it's a time when we can be a little bit tidier, a little bit more careful, just a little bit. We don't have to be exact all the time. So that's what I'm doing. And my strategy, yeah, this is going to be the area where I'm going to possibly conclude this painting, just the fold. And that's going to be just fine. To create that cylindric effect, drawing wise, I realized that there's something here that I need to do. And it's something that I constantly mention during feedback all the time. I made this line way too regular. It's just like a very soft, regular arch. But I noticed that because of the orientation of the blindfold, there's more of an ascension of the line, and then there's a quick drop. So this is when the brush helps us actually define the edge by modifying what we see. And I see it now. I didn't see it before. And I'm not blaming myself for not seeing it before. I'm supposed to see it now. And with my brush, I just make the change now. And that's why our paintings, you guys, are so much more superior than something made with carbon copy paper. Because this is what's exciting about a painting, how we modify things organically again on the go. That doesn't happen when you have the exact same thing and then you just fill in the blank, you know, it's like it's painting by numbers. Almost. Oops, I have a little bit of color, but I shouldn't say wrong things about that, because you know that's how we become familiar with painting. Sometimes it's a gateway to a practice, but I'm glad we're not there. Some of the color just okay, so this is not finished, but I just wanted to bring attention to the highlight, because you know I just wanted to test it. A highlight. Yeah, I think that's it. Some instead of using white to make that lighter, I use ecru, which is a much better color to lighten things up and keeping the color. Sometimes the titanium white could be way too chalky, way too chalky. Practice the colors, your alchemy, your paint alchemy, practice it first. I need some titanium. And then, yeah, I think that's good. Maybe I'm blending a little bit too much here on the painting. No, I think that's okay. All right. This is a little bit lighter, and I just brought this because I wanted to close this gap right below. That's a little bit too light. That's okay. This is what happens when, a perfect example of what happens when I blend on the paper or the surface. I lose control. And then I expand the mixture, hoping that the pigment nearby will just make the trick. Everything changes, and then I lost the illusion of volume. Yeah, that's it. Oh, I need to close the gap up here. So let me just do a few tones on this area to perhaps bring some sense of closure, a little bit closer to a sense of closure. Oh, Julio. Okay, here we go. What's with this storm, Jen? Do you have like stormy weather or something? Like I have a windstorm right here.
Oh my gosh, the wind is crazy.
Okay. I mean, okay, I'm not saying okay that I'm happy, but you know,
yeah.
we're so close, but then the weather is so different sometimes.
I know. No, the wind is crazy out of control. I had heard that we might have rain today, but
it rained here. I mean, I just overnight or something, everything was wet.
Oh.
So yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's just windstorms scare me a little bit. I don't know. Things falling and trees being uprooted. It's not fun.
Especially because the palm trees are so tall.
And that thing wind falls like a missile, you know, when the dry branches.
Oh my gosh, I'm terrified of those. Yeah.
So things that I'm doing, for example, I am just reining in some edges. So this is a good example of a way that I feel I can control when I move things around on the painting. I need to shave in from the outside. The forehead was a little bit rounder, so I had to close the gap. And having that opportunity, again, it's about allowing opportunities to be present at all times and not feeling that we are back in a corner or in front of a wall. So the less I commit, the more I can define on my own terms. Again, the less I commit with the process, That's why going from broad, it's always encouraged and a good idea, because as you build, not only your experience will allow you to make more connections, connect more dots, but the undefined edge will allow you to make a decision more clearly and without tapping into random gambling, see if that works or it doesn't work. Um, even with a, I would dare to say, even with a painting that looks chaotic and it almost looks like the artist was purposely trying to distort, things are perfectly studied and decisions were made that are very measured, contained, and thoughtful. So then don't get deceived by the Aberwaks. What's the name of the painter? The Jen, you know the name Aberwak, the British artist. Uh,
Yeah,
how do you pronounce
Albert.
his?
Albert. Yes, it's Auberach. Auerbach.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love him.
I know, I know you do. Yeah, which
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. So much paint, and then there's abstraction, but there is realism hidden within the abstraction. It's amazing, and it just seems like, carelessly I was just dumping, but it's perfectly studied. You know that there's incredible thought behind it, even in the randomness. I think. What do you think, Jen?
100%.
Yeah, that's what it's so amazing about that.
Because I mean, honestly, he just kept going until he got it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just yeah. Um, Another example, since I watched that, which I highly recommend, it's free. The Robert Motherwell, very abstract, in a different way, very clean. Uh, so not very complicated, but my gosh, the amount of thought. Um, and by the way, I should say that artists that use abstraction are more concerned than us in regards to composition, because the actual visual elements of composition and the elements of design are absolutely more important, or higher up the list of criteria when you do abstraction. It's a different ball game, and that's why abstraction, it's, if you ask me, it's much harder than figuration. I know that doesn't sound right, but it is much harder because you have to deal with the bare bones of visual elements, composition, rhythm, repetition. And I am fascinated. I think our paintings can only be better or more elevated, I should say, when we consider those elements as well. So that's why, anyhow, sorry, I hope you're just like painting. Uh, I think I'm just going to, we have some time. Sorry, we have some time. Yeah. So I feel like what I'm going to do, there's this area, I'm going to spend 5 minutes. 105 will be our cutout time. So we have 5 minutes, whatever 5 minutes it is in your time zone. This feels um, heavily or very underdeveloped. All right. This will be my final thing. Let me see. I have fabric, so the fabric is folding. So I think that's good. But then I have hair. I should have studied this. It's too confusing. And I have the ear. So let me just bring that down. It's all coinciding. Let me just make some changes here. Bring some of the green in the background to start uh, blocking out. Perhaps I should have done more of that first note. exercise. I think that's okay. It's a little bit more defined. And I'm going to bring the lighter color of the highlight that I used. And that's why it's important to keep your color history on your palette. Because now I realize that there's some of the fabric right here, and I still have the remaining of some of the highlight of that color. So bringing that in will create a correlation, and it will help me be more explicit or make this more recognizable as a piece of fabric from the same blindfold. Yeah, I think so. I'm just gonna bring the hair. How am I gonna do that? Because there's some of the highlights right here are with raw umber and ecru, but it has a little bit of pink. Our hair has pink. Well, anything under the sunlight, except during the solar noon. I am obsessed with that now. Thanks, Jen. Which has the whitest white, will have either some blue or pink cast. We haven't even gone through what to consider when we paint hair. And I'm sorry, but that's a lesson in itself, a webinar in itself. I don't think we have time for it now, but I think that's okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% satisfied, but that's okay. I'm not gonna get caught up with it. I'm just gonna bring a little bit more of an irregular shape. Again, regularity could be too noisy on a painting. It could take too much attention. Oh, and the folds on the sweater, on the shape of the hair. Oh, well, it's not finished, you guys. It just takes a while to finish the work. But hopefully you have, not hopefully, I know you guys are amazing and you'll have a pretty strong base to build from. I'm working on second notes here, trying to kind of like squeeze final brush strokes, but I'm gonna leave it here, I think. Well, yeah, I'm okay. So please, okay, so in the email, let me just organize my thoughts. I have sometimes too many things that I want to say. In the email, we mentioned that we completely respect and understand when you take a picture of, when we take a picture of ourselves, it could be quite confrontational because we're not used to, and it's us, and we change, and then all of a sudden we realize that, okay, so what happened in the last 11 months or the last week, by that matter? So we understand if you feel a little bit weird about uploading your photo. You don't have to. Of course, if you do, it may help to provide more feedback, but we're happy to just get your stage. We know that everyone's work is in progress, and we can give feedback just strictly with your stage. We can just do our best to try to give some sort of notes or things that may be useful for you to continue. Some people uploaded the photos, and that obviously makes it a little bit easier just by having the image source and then working by comparison, just pure and simple. And again, we're using this just as a way of trying to extract more information from the image source, so then we can creatively apply it to our own progress. So it's not just comparing and saying good, bad. So take your time, 10 minutes, please stretch. Our bodies get really tense. Our muscles get really tense of being engaged for 2 hours. Stretch, drink. I haven't drank anything and I'm parched. Eat something, I don't know, use the restroom. I feel like we have to say that because again, we're super engaged, and we're gonna reconvene at 1:15. Let's just do that. 1:15. I'm going to pause this. And by the way, we're not going to record if that makes it easier, but we're going to continue doing it for the remaining of the sessions unless someone has an issue with this. We're going to stop the recording right here. The rest of the critique will not be recorded. We did a little bit of an internal survey and it feels like everyone's okay with that. So be back because those things are helpful anyhow. But yeah, we'll stop the recording right now. Actually, I'm going to stop it right now. This is the end of the webinar. Okay.